Under the broken sky, smoke still curled from the ruins of a battlefield. The night was heavy and quiet. Only the faint crackling of fire and the distant echo of falling stones could be heard. A human soldier walked slowly across the shattered ground, his boots pressing on ash and broken stone, his armor scratched and his body aching. He had seen battles before, but something about this place felt different. It felt alive, as if the shadows themselves were waiting for him. He moved carefully, his eyes sharp, his hand never far from the hilt of his weapon. The air smelled of iron and old blood, but beneath it all, there was something else. Something cold that reached into his chest. It was not just the silence. It was fear, not his fear, but someone else's. He could almost taste it in the air. Then he heard it, a voice, soft and broken, carried through the ruins like a whisper. At first, he thought it was the wind, but no wind spoke words. "Please. Help me," the voice said, so weak it was almost lost. The soldier stopped in his tracks. His body tense, his heart beating fast. He followed the sound, stepping past broken pillars and fallen statues. The place had once been a grand hall, but now it was nothing but rubble and shadows. Torches burned faintly in iron holders, but there, light barely reached the corners. It was there, in the deepest shadow, that he saw her. A figure knelt on the ground, chains binding her wrists and ankles. Her head bent low, her body trembling. She was not human. Her skin faintly glowed like silver under the firelight. Her eyes, when they looked up, were wide and filled with tears. She was young, perhaps barely grown by her people's years, but her voice carried the weight of someone who had already given up. The soldier stepped closer, his weapon still ready. He had seen aliens before, but none like her. She was fragile, yet there was something sharp about her, like a blade hidden in silk. "Please," she whispered again, her voice cracking. "They will come for me. The ritual. I cannot survive it. No one ever does." Her words made him freeze. He had heard whispers among soldiers of strange customs, of alien tribes that clung to rituals older than memory. Rituals where blood was spilled, not for justice, but for fear. He had never seen one himself, but now, standing before this trembling girl, he realized it was real. He knelt slightly, just close enough to hear her without drawing too much attention. "Who?" he asked, his voice low. "Who is coming?" "Are you?" She tried to lift her hands, her body shaking. "The council," she whispered. "The elders. They chose me for the ritual. Once chosen, no one escapes. They will kill me because they say I am weak, because I did not fight like they wanted." Her words spilled out like broken glass. Sharp and painful, the soldier felt the weight of her fear press against him. It was not the fear of dying in battle. It was the fear of dying without a chance of being sacrificed to a law that no longer made sense. He had seen warriors die proud, but this girl was not a warrior. She was prey being led to slaughter. Her hands gripped the chain tightly, her silver skin bruised around the cuffs. "I begged them. I told them I would serve in any way. I would clean their halls, carry their burdens, anything. But they said, the ritual must be done. They said tradition cannot be broken. Please, human, help me." For a moment, the soldier did not answer. His training told him to walk away, to stay clear of alien politics and customs. This was not his war, not his people, yet something in her eyes held him still. She was not lying. She was not playing a trick. She was simply afraid. And she had reached the end of hope. He glanced around. The shadows seemed to grow heavier, as if the walls themselves were listening. The torches flickered, and he knew time was running short. Soon, whoever guarded this place would come, and once they did, he would no longer have a choice. The soldier stepped forward, his hand brushing against the cold metal of her chains. She flinched, then looked at him with wide, desperate eyes. "Why me?" he asked softly. "Why call for me?" Her breath shook as she answered, "Because you are not bound by their laws. Because you are human, and humans do not fear their ritual. I heard stories that humans stand even when others fall. Please, let that story be true tonight." Her words struck deep. He felt something stir inside him, something he thought he had buried long ago. He had seen cruelty before. He had seen the cost of tradition twisted into chains, and now, standing over her, he realized he could not walk away. The soldier's hand tightened around his weapon, his eyes sharp, his heart steady. "I do not know your ritual," he said, his voice quiet but strong. "But I know this, no one dies tonight, not while I am here." Her tears fell freely now. But there was a spark in her eyes, a flicker of hope that had been dead moments before. She lowered her head, whispering again, "Thank you, human." But in the silence that followed, the soldier heard it drums, faint at first, then louder. Echoing through the broken halls, the ritual was coming. The shadows shifted as figures began to move in the distance, and he knew the night had only just begun. The night grew heavier as the drums echoed through the broken halls. Each beat seemed to shake the ground beneath the soldier's boots. He stood over the chained alien girl, his hand still resting on the metal links. Her body trembled with every sound, her wide silver eyes fixed on him as if he was her only chance. "They are coming," she whispered, her voice thin like broken glass. "The ritual must begin before the second moon passes. If I am not ready, they will drag me by force." Her chains rattled as she tried to pull herself closer. Fear carved into every word she spoke. The soldier stayed silent for a moment, his mind racing. He was human, not part of their traditions, not bound by their laws, yet here he was, in the center of something older and darker than any war he had fought. His training told him to leave, to walk away, but his heart refused. "What is this ritual?" he asked finally, his voice calm but steady. She looked at him with trembling lips, her breath uneven. "It is an old law, older than the stars my people sail. They say weakness is a disease, and only through the ritual can it be purged. Those chosen must fight in the circle, and when they fall, their blood feeds the sacred fire. It is said to please the gods of old, but..." She lowered her head, tears running down her pale cheeks. "No one has ever returned, no one ever lives." The soldier's jaw tightened. He had seen many things across the stars. Cruelty in the name of honor, pain in the name of faith. But this was nothing but slaughter wrapped in holy words. He felt anger stir inside him, but he hid it behind his calm eyes. "Why you?" he asked, though he already feared the answer. Her hands tightened on the chain. Her voice cracked. "Because I did not fight, because I refused to kill when they ordered me. They call me weak, unworthy, a curse to our bloodline. So the council chose me. They said I will be an offering, that my death will wash away the shame." Her words fell heavy in the silence. The soldier looked around the ruined hall. The shadows seemed alive. The torches flickered as if they, too, listened. He knew eyes were watching, even if unseen. He felt the weight of judgment pressing from the darkness. "And if I free you?" he asked quietly. Her eyes lifted to him, full of both hope and despair. "Then they will hunt you. They will hunt us both." The council will never forgive a broken ritual. It has not been done for centuries. The last who tried, their names were erased from memory. Even their families burned away. "Please understand, human. If you help me, you do not only face warriors. You face tradition itself." The soldier felt the words cut deep. He was one man against an entire people, one blade against a storm. Yet when he looked at her again, fragile in her chains, trembling but still alive, he knew what choice he had already made. Suddenly, the drums stopped. The silence was louder than the noise had been. The soldier's hand went to his weapon, and then they came. Shadows moving through the broken archways, tall figures in robes of black and crimson, their faces hidden behind bone masks. Each carried a staff topped with a glowing crystal. Their footsteps were slow but heavy, as if the ground bent to their will. At the center of them walked an elder, taller than the rest, his mask carved with deep scars. His voice carried like thunder in the hall. "The hour has come, the chosen shall rise." His staff struck the ground, sparks of blue fire dancing across the stone. The girl flinched, her chains rattling. She tried to hide behind the soldier, though she had nowhere to go. The elder's masked face turned toward the human. "Step aside, outsider," the elder commanded. "This is not your place. This is not your law." The soldier's eyes narrowed, his hand tightening around his weapon. He felt every instinct tell him to prepare for a fight. But he did not move. He stood his ground, his shadow falling over the girl. "She is not yours to kill," he said, his voice calm but heavy. The hall grew cold. The masked figures shifted, murmurs rising like snakes in the dark. No one had spoken against the ritual in centuries. No one dared. The elder raised his staff again, fire sparking brighter. "You dare speak against the council. You dare stand in the way of the gods." His voice roared, but the soldier did not flinch. She begged for help. The human answered simply, his voice echoing through the chamber, and I answered. For a long moment, silence filled the air. Then the elder's voice turned sharp. "Very well. If you would take her place, then you shall enter the circle. If you wish to defy the law, then you will bleed by it." The soldier's heart pounded. The girl gasped, pulling at her chains. "No," she cried. "They will kill you. You don't know their ways. You don't know the circle." But the soldier placed a steady hand on her shoulder, his eyes never leaving the elders. "Then let me learn," he said quietly. The elders raised their staffs as one. The torches blazed with sudden fire. The walls trembled as hidden doors opened. The sound of drums began again. Louder, faster, a call to blood. The ritual was no longer a threat had begun. The soldier stood tall, his blade at his side. The girl's tear-streaked face lifted to him, her voice barely a whisper. "Why, human? Why risk everything for me?" He looked down at her, his eyes sharp, his face unshaken. "Because no one deserves to die alone." And with those words, he turned toward the circle. Where shadows waited with blades, the drums shook the ground as the soldiers stepped deeper. Into the ruined temple, the chained girl dragged along behind him, her eyes darting left and right in terror. The air grew thick with smoke, and the flickering torchlight revealed ancient carvings on the walls, strange symbols that seemed to twist when looked at too long ahead. The hall widened into a great chamber, its ceiling lost in shadows. Fires burned in tall stone braziers, their flames a dark blue instead of orange, and around the fire stood the council. Masked figures in heavy robes, their eyes hidden, but their presence heavy like a mountain pressing down on the air. The girl gasped as she saw them, her body collapsing against the chains. "The council of fire," she whispered, her voice trembling. "They will not stop. Not for me, not for you." The soldier said nothing, his jaw set, his hand never leaving the hilt of his blade. He could feel their eyes on him, even through the masks, watching, judging, weighing him like a beast brought into their court. One elder stepped forward, his robe embroidered with golden thread that glowed faintly under the firelight. His mask was carved like a beast with fangs. And when he spoke, his voice echoed through the hall, deep and sharp. "You are human," he said. "Outsider, wanderer of broken wars. You do not belong in this chamber. Step away, and the ritual may continue as it must." The soldier's eyes narrowed. He stood firmer, his shadow covering the trembling girl behind him. "If this ritual is nothing but slaughter, "Then I will not move," he answered, his voice low but strong. A murmur rose among the elders, like the hiss of fire catching dry wood. The golden-robed one raised his hand, and the chamber fell silent again. "This is not slaughter," the elder said, his words rolling like thunder. "This is law, older than you, older than your world. We do not waste the weak, we offer them. We cleanse the bloodline so our people may remain strong." The girl cried out, her chains clattering as she tried to crawl closer to the soldier. "Please, no, I am not weak. I only refuse to kill. I only wanted peace," but her words were drowned by laughter, hollow and cold from behind the masks. The soldier looked down at her, then back at the elders, anger burning in his chest. "Strength is not killing the weak," he said firmly. "Strength is protecting them." The words struck the hall like a thrown stone. The council grew restless. The fires roared higher. Shadows danced along the walls. The golden-robed elder slammed his staff against the floor, sparks of blue light flashing outward. "Then prove your words," he said, his voice booming. "Enter the circle, fight as she was meant to fight. Bleed as she was meant to bleed. If you survive, she will. Be freed if you fall. Both your deaths will honor the gods." The girl shook her head violently, her silver hair falling across her face. "No, please, you cannot. They are not like you. Their warriors are trained from birth. They will break you. Please, don't. Do this for me." Her words poured like tears. The soldier crouched for a moment, resting his hand gently on her shoulder, his voice softer than before. "You begged me to save you," he said, his eyes steady on hers. "I don't run from what I promise." Her lips trembled, her tears falling onto his hand. She wanted to stop him, but his calmness was unshakable. Something in his eyes made her believe, even when she knew the odds were hopeless. The council moved as one, their staffs striking the stone floor in rhythm. The sound was heavy, like the beat of a giant heart. The fires rose higher, casting long shadows on the walls. And then the circle revealed itself. The ground in the center of the chamber split, the stones shifting and sliding away to reveal a pit, wide and round, with walls carved in jagged symbols that glowed faintly with blue light. Chains fell from the ceiling above, marking the boundary of the circle from the far side of the chamber. Heavy doors opened, and the first of the warriors entered, tall, armored, their faces hidden behind bone helms. Each carried a blade that shimmered with strange light. Their movements were slow, but filled with power, as if every step was a promise of violence. The girl's breath caught in her throat. "The trial of blades," she whispered, her voice breaking. "This is where I was meant to die." The soldier stood at the edge of the circle, his hand tightening around his own weapon, his heart steady. He had fought wars before. He had seen monsters, machines, and men fall by his hand. But this was different. This was no battle for ground or victory. This was survival against tradition itself. The golden-robed elder raised his staff high. The flames roared, and his voice shook the walls. "Enter the circle, human, face what she could not, and let the gods judge if you are worthy." The soldier took one step forward, his boots hitting the stone floor of the circle. The sound echoed, clear and final. The chains rattled above him, sealing the ritual's boundary. The girl cried out behind him, her voice filled with fear. "Please, don't leave me," she begged, her hands reaching out through the chains, her tears falling freely. The soldier glanced back once, his face calm, but his eyes holding a promise. "I am not leaving you," he said quietly. And then he turned back to the warriors, entering the circle, the chamber filled with the roar of drums. The council's chant began, old words that carried power in every syllable. The firelight flickered and shadows seemed to lean forward to watch. The ritual was alive now, a thing breathing through the voices of the elders. The soldier lifted his blade, steady and firm. The warriors surrounded him, their glowing weapons raised. The circle was closed, the trial had begun. And the fate of both human and alien girl now rested in the firelit pit of the Council of Fire. The circle burned with blue fire as the soldiers stepped into its heart. The chants of the council thundered. From all sides, their voices rolling like a storm, trapped in stone walls. The chained girl pressed herself against the floor outside the circle, her hands reaching through the gaps, her silver eyes wide with fear. "Don't do this," she whispered. Again, but her voice was lost in the roar of drums. From the far gate, the first warrior entered, tall and broad, armor black as coal, a blade glowing faintly in his hand. The warrior's steps were heavy, each one shaking the stone beneath. His helm was shaped like the skull of some ancient beast, and his eyes glowed faint blue from behind it. The soldier's heart beat steady. He raised his weapon and held it firm. He had fought enemies before. He had stood in fire and chaos. But this was no battlefield. This was theater. A ritual meant to break both body and spirit, and every move would be watched, judged, weighed. The warrior lifted his blade and pointed it at him, then slammed it against his chest plate. The sound echoed like thunder. The council's chanting grew louder. The ritual had begun. The first clash came fast. The warrior swung his glowing blade with terrifying speed, sparks flying as it struck against the soldier's steel. The force rattled his arm, but he pushed back, twisting his wrist and forcing the blade aside. He moved quickly, striking toward the gap in the armor. But the warrior twisted just in time, the steel scraping harmlessly across his shoulder plate. The alien girl gasped, her breath catching in her throat. She whispered his name, though no one else could hear it. She wanted to close her eyes, but she couldn't look away. The warrior roared, spinning his blade in a wide arc. The soldier ducked, rolling across the stone floor, his boots scraping sparks. He rose in an instant, sweat already forming on his brow. He could feel the difference. These were not common fighters. They were bred for this, trained for generations. Their strength, not only in body, but in belief. Still, he did not falter. When the warrior came again, he met him strike for strike, steel ringing loud enough to shake the chamber. The council's chant grew faster. The fire flared higher. Shadows twisted like living things. At last, the soldier found his opening. The warrior's stance slipped for a breath, and the human moved like lightning, its blade cutting across the warrior's side. Sparks and blue light flared. The warrior staggered, clutching the wound. The girl's eyes widened with hope. But the trial was not over. The council raised their staffs, and the gate opened again. 2 more warriors stepped forward, their glowing blades catching the firelight. The crowd roared behind their masks. The ritual demanded more blood. The soldier's chest heaved, but he gripped his weapon tighter. He would not step back. He would not give them weakness. The girl's voice trembled. "Please, stop. They'll kill you." No one survives more than one, but he did not turn. His focus locked on the 2 warriors circling him. They struck together, blades flashing from both sides. The soldier barely blocked one, sparks exploding as steel collided. The other blade grazed across his armor, burning his skin beneath. Pain seared through him, but he ground his teeth and pushed forward. Forcing himself between them, he lashed out, his blade cutting across the first warrior's arm, then twisted his body to block the second. The fight turned into chaos, strikes ringing faster, every movement costing breath and blood. His arms ached, his body burned, yet his eyes never lost their fire. He fought not for honor, not for glory, but for the girl watching him, for the promise he had given. At last, with a roar, he drove his blade through the chest of one warrior, the glowing light in his eyes fading as the body collapsed. He turned in time to meet the second, catching the blade before it struck his neck. He twisted, kicked, and with sheer force slammed the warrior onto the stone. Finishing the fight with one last strike, the chamber fell silent for a breath. Even the council hesitated. The human stood in the circle, blood dripping from his cuts, his chest heaving. Yet he stood, tall, unbroken. The girl's tears fell. But this time they were mixed with hope. "He's still standing," she whispered, as if she couldn't believe it. But the silence broke quickly. The golden-robed elder raised his staff again, his voice cutting through the chamber like a blade. Again he thundered, and the gates opened once more. This time 3 warriors entered, their steps slow, their blades already stained with blood from old rituals. The council roared in approval, the chanting shaking the walls, the fire rising. Higher, the soldier's body ached. His wounds burned, but he raised his blade again, his voice steady as he spoke, not to the council, not to the warriors, but to the girl. "I told you, you're not dying tonight." The warriors spread out, surrounding him. The trial of blades was not meant to be fair. It was meant to break the will, to drown one man in endless enemies. But the human only gripped, his weapon tighter, standing in the circle of fire, ready to face them all. The girl pressed her hands against the chains, her voice shaking as she cried, "Please, gods, let him survive." And then the circle erupted again, steel against steel, sparks against fire, the soldier fighting alone, every clash defying the law, every breath a rebellion. The circle was alive with fire and steel. The council's chants shook the chamber, their staffs striking the stone floor in rhythm. The 3 warriors closed in on the human, their glowing blades cutting lines of light through the smoke. The air felt heavy, as if the gods themselves leaned down to watch. The soldier tightened his grip on his weapon. His chest rose and fell with sharp breaths. Blood dripped from a cut on his arm, but his eyes stayed firm, unshaken. He had survived the first trial. He had defeated 2 more, but now 3 circled him like predators, their movements sharp, their confidence strong. The alien girl clung to her chains, her silver eyes wide, tears streaking her face. She shook her head again and again, whispering broken words. "Please, stop. Please don't die." But the human never looked back. His focus locked on the warriors. The first moved fast, swinging his glowing blade low. Aiming to cut the human's legs, the soldier leaped back, but the second came from the other side. Their strikes timed, meant to trap him. Steel rang as he blocked one, pain seared across his side as the other's blade grazed him. Fire burned his flesh, but he gritted his teeth and forced his body forward. He pushed into the attack, surprising them. His blade slashed upward, cutting across the first warrior's chest. Sparks flaring, the aliens stumbled back. The council roared louder, their voices echoing, calling for blood. But there was no time. The second warrior slammed his blade down. The soldier blocked, the impact rattling his bones. The third struck from behind, and the human twisted, barely dodging as the blade scraped across his shoulder. Blood splattered the stone. The girl screamed, her voice piercing through the chants. "No," she cried, her hands bloody from pulling at her chains. "Please don't fall." Her voice broke. But the human still stood. He planted his feet, his eyes burning. He had fought wars before, but this was different. This was not about victory or defeat. This was about keeping a promise, about standing when no one else would, about showing her that humans did not break. The second warrior lunged, blade aimed for his chest. The soldier twisted, grabbing the warrior's arm with his free hand. Pulling him forward, he slammed his elbow into the alien's helm. The crack echoed through the chamber. Then his blade drove into the warrior's side. the glow in his eyes fading as he fell. The council's chants grew faster, louder, fire roaring higher. They were angry, but also hungry. The ritual was alive now, feeding on every drop of blood. The two remaining warriors attacked at once, blades flashing in deadly arcs. The soldier barely kept up. His arms heavy, his breath sharp, sparks flying with every strike, his blade locked against one, while the other's edge cut into his thigh. Pain shot up his leg, his knees almost buckled. But he did not fall. The girl cried louder, her chains clattering as she tried to reach him. "Please, stop. Please," she begged. Her tears falling fast, but the soldier only pushed harder, his blade ringing with defiance. He roared, slamming his weapon aside, forcing one warrior off balance, then spun, using the momentum to strike the third, his blade cutting deep across the alien's torso. The warrior stumbled back, blood spilling across the stone. But the last warrior came again, his glowing blade aimed for the human's head. The soldier ducked, sparks exploding as steel scraped across the stone wall. He rose, in an instant, his blade striking upward, cutting across the warrior's throat. The helm cracked, the body fell. Silence struck the chamber for a heartbeat. Only the soldier's harsh breaths filled the air. 3 warriors lay fallen around him, their blood steaming on the stone. The human stood, his body shaking, his wounds burning, but he was still alive. Still unbroken, the girl sobbed, her tears falling like rain. But this time, her voice was filled with awe. "He's still standing," she whispered. Her hands pressed against the chains. The council erupted, their chants turning into shouts, their staffs slamming harder, sparks filling the air. The golden-robed elder stepped forward, his masked face glowing in the firelight. "Not enough," he thundered, his voice shaking the hall. "The ritual is not satisfied. More blood must be spilled." The soldier raised his blade, blood dripping from its edge, his voice steady, though his body trembled. "Then let it be mine," he said, "but she walks free." The elder's laugh echoed, hollow and cruel. "You are brave, human. But bravery does not end the ritual. Strength does, and you will break before the fire does." He raised his staff, and the gate opened again. This time, not 1, not 2, but 4 warriors entered, their blades glowing brighter, their armor heavier. The fire roared higher as the council chanted louder. The trial of blades was no longer just a test. It had become a war. The girl's scream cut through the chamber. "Please. He can't fight them all." Her voice broke, her tears falling, but the soldier only glanced at her once, his eyes steady, his lips whispering words only she could hear. "I will not let you die." He turned back to the warriors, lifting his blade again, his body battered and bleeding, but his spirit burning brighter than the flames. The clash in the circle was far from over, and he would face it alone. The chamber shook with the sound of the council's chants. The fire in the tall braziers roared higher than ever, the air thick with smoke and heat. 4 warriors now circled the human in the trial pit, their glowing blades humming with strange power. The soldier's body was battered, blood ran down his arm and leg, his breaths came hard, but his eyes stayed steady, his grip on the weapon unbroken. He had stood against 1, then 2, then 3, and still he remained. But now the council wanted more. The chained alien girl watched with wide, tear-filled eyes, her hands bruised and bloody from pulling at her bonds. She whispered his name again and again, begging him to stop, begging him to run. But he did not look back. He stood for her. The first warrior struck, his glowing blade cutting through the air. The soldier blocked, sparks flaring. The second followed, slamming down with force that rattled the stone. The soldier twisted, the strike grazing across his side. Pain seared, but he pushed forward, his own blade cutting across the first warrior's chest. blood spilling as the aliens stumbled back, but the fight did not stop. The third came from behind. Blade raised to strike, the girl screamed, "Behind you!" Her voice breaking, the soldier spun, barely in time. Steel clashed with glowing edge, the sound ringing sharp through the hall. He forced the strike away, his arms trembling from the effort. The fourth warrior charged, slamming into him with the weight of a beast. The soldier crashed to the ground, his blade skidding across the stone. The council roared louder, their voices calling for blood. The warrior raised his glowing blade high, ready to end it. The girl's scream tore through the chamber. "No, please," she cried, her chains rattling as she threw herself against them. The sound echoed like thunder. The human rolled, grabbing his fallen weapon. He thrust upward with all his strength, the steel cutting through the warrior's chest. The glow in his eyes fading as he collapsed. The soldier pulled himself up, his body shaking. 3 more stood before him, their eyes burning, their blades raised, but he did not falter. He lifted his own weapon again, blood dripping from its edge. The second warrior charged. Their blades clashed again and again, each strike heavier, faster. The human's arms ached. But he did not stop. He twisted, parried, and drove his blade into the alien's side. Another fell. The council shouted in rage. The fires flared wild. The chamber trembled. But the human stood tall, his chest heaving, sweat and blood mixing on his skin. 2 warriors remained, circling him like wolves. They attacked together, their glowing blades flashing. The soldier blocked. One, pain shooting through his arm. The second struck his leg. Blood spilled across the floor. His knee buckled. He almost fell. The girl screamed again, "Please, stop. They'll kill you." Her voice cracking, but he forced himself up, his jaw clenched, his eyes burning with fire. He roared, swinging his blade with all his strength. Striking one across the helm, the alien stumbled, and with a quick twist, he cut deep through the other's chest. Blood sprayed across the stone. The last warrior fell. Silence crashing into the chamber. The soldier stood in the circle, his body broken, his breath heavy, but still alive, still standing. The girl sobbed, her tears falling like rain. "He did it," she whispered. "He's still standing." Her voice filled with disbelief and hope, but the council did not cheer. They did not honor his strength. Instead, the golden-robed elder raised his staff high, his voice booming through the hall. "Enough," he thundered. "This cannot be. No human can defy the gods. The ritual cannot be broken." The soldier raised his blade, pointing it at the elder, his voice steady, though his body shook. "The ritual is broken," he said, "because I still stand, and she still lives." The elder slammed his staff down, sparks of blue fire racing across the stone. "She will not leave this chamber. Her blood belongs to the fire," he roared. The girl's eyes widened in terror, her chains rattling, as she cried out, "Please, don't take him too, please," her voice shaking. The soldier looked at her, his eyes soft for a moment, then hard again as he turned to the council, his voice sharp. "Then I will break more than your ritual." With a sudden movement, he stepped out of the circle, staggering but unbroken. The elders shouted in fury, their staffs glowing with fire, but the soldier ignored them. He walked straight to the girl, the chains glowing faint blue with strange energy. He raised his blade high. The council screamed, "Stop!" their voices shaking the hall. "The chains are sacred. No blade can touch them." The girl's breath shook, her eyes wide. "No, you'll die if you try," she whispered. But the human only gave her a small, tired smile. "Then let me die breaking them," he said, with a roar. He swung his blade down, steel met glowing. Chain, sparks exploded. The chamber shook. The council screamed. The fire roared higher. For a moment, it seemed the chain would not break. But then, with a sharp crack, the links shattered. The glow fading, the girl gasped as her wrists came free. The chamber fell silent. Every masked elder staring in disbelief, the human dropped to one knee. His blade still burning with the last of the chain's light. He looked up at her, his voice soft but firm. "You're free now." Tears streamed down her face. She fell to her knees beside him, clutching his arm. "You broke it," she whispered, her voice filled with awe. "No one ever has, no one ever could." The council roared in rage, their staffs sparking with fire, but their chants were broken, their law shattered. The human had done what none before him had dared. The chains were broken, and with them the ritual itself. The chamber was silent, broken only by the crackle of blue fire and the heavy breath of the human. He knelt on the stone floor, his blade still smoking from the shattered chains. The alien girl clung to his arm, her tears falling fast, her wrists raw but free at last. The council stood frozen, their staffs glowing faint but trembling. For centuries, no one had ever broken the ritual. No one had dared to shatter the sacred chains. And now, before their eyes, an outsider, a human, had destroyed what they thought eternal. The golden-robed elder's voice finally thundered through the hall, filled with rage and disbelief. "This cannot be. No mortal hand can break the chains. The gods themselves will punish you." Sparks of fire shot from his staff, the blue flames roaring higher. The human forced himself to his feet, his body broken, blood soaking his clothes. But his eyes steady, he pulled the girl behind him, shielding her with his body. "Then let the gods come," he said quietly, his voice sharp as steel. But no one touches her again. The girl gasped, her heart racing. No one had ever spoken to the council like that, not even their strongest warriors. She pressed closer to him, her voice trembling. "They'll kill us both," she whispered, but his hand tightened around hers. The council began to chant again, their staffs raised high, fire rushing in wild waves across the chamber. Shadows twisting like serpents, the elders' voices grew louder, calling for judgment, calling for fire. But something changed. The flames bent, their roar fading. The light dimming, the blue glow flickered weakly as if the chain's destruction had broken more than just iron. The ritual itself was dying. The golden-robed elder slammed his staff down again, shouting, "No. The law cannot be broken. The gods demand blood." His voice cracked with fury, but the other elders hesitated, some lowering their staffs, some whispering, their voices filled with doubt. The girl looked around in shock. She had never seen them falter, never seen fear in their movements, but now they trembled, their ancient power crumbling. The human stepped forward, his blade still raised, his voice calm, though his body shook. "You call this strength? Killing your own, chaining the weak, hiding behind fire and fear. You are not strong. You are cowards." The words echoed like thunder. The girl's breath caught. She had begged for her life before. She had screamed against the ritual. But no one ever listened. Yet now, one man's voice shattered the silence. The golden-robed elder roared, swinging his staff, fire blasting outward. The flames rushed like a storm. But the human raised his blade and stood firm. The blast struck. The chamber shook. Smoke filled the air. The girl screamed, covering her face. When the smoke cleared, the human still stood, burned, bloodied, but unbroken, his blade glowing faintly with the light of the shattered chain. The elders staggered back in disbelief. Their chants faltered, their staffs dimmed. The fire in the chamber shrank low. The ritual had been undone. The girl rose slowly, her body trembling but her voice stronger now. She stepped beside the human, her silver eyes blazing. "No more," she said, her voice echoing across the hall. "The chains are broken, the ritual is dead. I am alive, and you cannot erase me." Her words struck deeper than fire. The council stood silent, some dropping their staffs, others stepping back. The golden-robed elder shook with rage, but he could not deny what had happened. The human lowered his blade, his voice quiet but heavy. "This ends tonight." The girl clung to his arm, tears falling again, but this time they were not tears of despair. They were tears of freedom. She looked up at him with trembling lips, whispering, "You saved me, human, you truly saved me, for the first time." A faint smile touched his tired face. "You're safe now," he said softly. The chamber grew. Still, the fires dimmed to embers. The council whispered among themselves, fear and doubt spreading. They had seen something they never thought possible. A human defied their gods, shattered their ritual, and lived as the two walked out of the chamber, the girl leaning against him for strength. The silence of the elders followed them. No one moved to stop them. No one dared. The law was broken, the chains undone, outside. The night air was cool, the stars shining above the ruins. The girl breathed deeply, her first breath as a free soul. She looked at the human, her silver eyes filled with light. "They will never forget this," she whispered. "My people, the galaxy. None will ever forget what you did." The human looked at the stars, his blade still in his hand. His body weary, but his spirit strong. "I didn't do it for them," he said, his voice calm. "I did it because you begged, and no one should beg for their life alone." Her tears fell again, but she smiled through them. She held his hand tightly as they stepped into the starlight together, leaving the broken council and their dead ritual behind. And somewhere deep in the galaxy, whispers of a human who faced the ritual alone, who broke the chains, who saved the girl, and who defied the gods themselves. A new beginning had been written that night, not just for her, but for all who would one day hear the story.